Hello, hello. This is Erick Widman, David Lee, and welcome to our H1B webinar. We are exploring this new platform. It's pretty cool, called Demio, and we hope we have no technical difficulties, but we want to do these every Friday and provide some really helpful information and get your questions answered. And we're really happy that David just recently joined our firm. He's based out of Seattle. And one of the things most impressive about David is that he has a PhD in law. So he's a US lawyer, but a true academic. And one of the things that I loved about David is that when I asked him, well, why wouldn't you want to just be a law professor somewhere and teach law? And his answer was that he loves client work. And it's really true. And any of you, I thought about being a political science professor before I went to law school. And I realized, and some people talked me out of it too, that instead of writing papers and just being an expert on the subject matter, really help clients. And we find that very gratifying for sure. That's one of the best parts about being an immigration lawyer, all the people we can help. So I hope you guys can all hear me. We have a chat section, and I hope you can see on the Demio platform that you could type in a question. And what we're going to do, David is our true H1B expert. He's going to lead the presentation. And when you have questions, pose those questions in the chat section, and I'll try to facilitate everything. But yeah, quick background, Passage Immigration Law has been around for 10 years. I founded the firm after I was in-house counsel in California, where I got to work at Philips Electronics as an attorney and handle immigration and business matters. We moved up to Portland. We love it there. And we're expanding into Seattle and Los Angeles. So we are really excited to help people during this H1B season. And David put together these slides. David, I'm going to hand it over to you. Take it away.
Thank you, Eric. Nice to meet you, everyone. My name is Jinky Lee. Also, I go by David. And yeah, thank you so much for your wonderful introduction, Eric. So as Eric just shared, I've been through F1 international student and H1B and EB2 process. So I feel empathy to the people attending school and working as an immigrant and foreign nationals. So for today, I'm going to focus on the brief introduction about H1B process, because the process will begin in March this year. So about 1 month away. So it's good time to think about and consider this option. So I'm gonna do some presentation. We have 4 slides, and then after the presentation, we are going to have Q&A session. So if you have any questions, please use the chat box to share your question. So let me begin. So the first slide is a concept of eligibility of H1B. I believe many of you already know about what H1B is, but just to reinstate, H1B is one visa type, which is non-immigrant visa, that meaning it's not green card. So non-immigrant visa sponsored by employer. Employer here is US employer, so it should be the company registered in the US. And the H1B status is granted during the employment with the sponsoring employer. That means if you quit the job, you need to find another employer to continue your H1B status. And there are some grace period, about 60 days, to find the new employer. So that sometimes happens for various reasons. The employment is terminated, but no worries. You can find the employer and continue your work in H1B status. And a little bit difficult terms, but it's not that difficult, which is for H1B, there are two types. First one is cap subjective, and the second one is cap exempt. So the cap here means the limit of numbers of H1B granted in every year. So this year, so for cap subjective cases, we need to go through the lottery, which is a case selection process. And from the lottery, USCIS will select 85,000 cases. So I will briefly go over that at next slide. So that is cap subjective, and most of the cases belongs to this cap subjective, unfortunately, because the, having to be selected from the lottery is kind of uncertainty. We do not like that, but under the cap subjective categories, we have to go through the process. And just want to briefly touch on what cap exempt is. So cap exempt is that you are not be bound by the limit of the H1B cases. So for cap exempt, there's no lottery and no selection process, and you can apply for H1B at any time through the year. Which jobs offer this cap exempt? Mostly the government and nonprofit and universities are mostly the cap exempt is granted for those. But in terms of the nonprofit, it's a little bit complicated because being nonprofit itself does not guarantee the cap exempt status. Instead, the nonprofit has to have MOU with universities, and the nonprofit has to be a research nonprofit. So by showing that circumstances, we can ask for exempt. So, but today, I mainly talk about cap subjective cases. So the case selection from the lottery, I mentioned that. And one important eligibility is specialty occupation. That means the position your employer going to sponsor you should be the position that requires 4-year bachelor's degree. So we have Department of Labor standard about which position qualifies for the specialty occupation. So when you suggest the occupation to position, then the attorneys will be able to figure out whether this position qualifies as specialty occupation or not. So in terms of the time, H1B is granted for 6-year limit. First, initially, 3 years is granted, and you need to renew the status for another 3 years. But there's an exception. You can go beyond the 6 year. I will touch upon that later in the later slide.
And David, we have a great question. During the 6-year period, are you able to apply for a green card?
That's so great question. Yes, sure. I also have slides for your path to green card. Yeah, definitely. I personally believe the H1B is best pre-green card status. So being H1B, you have good enough time to prepare for application, green card application. So in H1B, and you start to all the procedures for green card. So yes, definitely, you can apply for green card. And going back to my slide. So this one is process and timeline. It is based on the last year's, and I believe it will be similar to this, but just a matter of day and date. So the first step is employer registration for the case selection. So as I mentioned before, for most of the cases are kept subjective, and we need to be selected from the lottery. For that, employer has to register at USCIS website, which begins in March. And there are that registration period, and when the period ends, USCIS will select by lottery. And that selection is usually end before the end of March. So as I previously mentioned before, so 65 cases are selected first. That's the regular quarter. And after that, someone who has advanced degree higher than master's from the US schools, those people have second chance. That means even if they are not selected from the first round, the 65,000, 20,000 more people can be selected from the second round if they have advanced degree from the US schools.
And David, to confirm, so it's a master's degree or above for that advanced degree category.
Yes, that's the one. Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yes. I've heard it described as a second bite at an apple. If you have a master's degree, that's the analogy that you're able, in a sense, to get two chances in the lottery.
Mm-hmm. Right. Okay, and if you are selected, I hope everyone here, your case will be selected from the lottery. Then we have the filing period. Last year, it was from the beginning of the April to the end of June. So we have to prepare and file the petition. That's the lawyer's job. So we need to go through the LCA procedure at Department of Labor and preparing the forms and supplement documents and filing it. One good thing is this LCA procedure in Department of Labor that does not take many time. So that means it does not take long. So we can get the result and approval within 1 week or two. So that's a good thing, and that reduces the uncertainty here. And the processing time. So you file the petition before the end of the filing period. Then you will just, what you need to do is just wait for the result. And how long does it take? It depends on case, of course, but regularly it took last year, it took, even during this pandemic, it took from 2 months to 4 months. So it's not that long. I'm very glad that we see this relatively shorter processing time. And you can even reduce the time to 3 weeks by using the premium processing. For this processing, you have to pay $2,500 fee more. And so you can have this option in terms of the processing time. And another concept I need to explain here is cap gap for OPT holders. So OPT, as many of you already know, the OPT is the optional practical training granted for 1 year and more years for STEM OPT holders. So in many cases, students graduate from the school and they work using OPT, and then they apply for H1B while doing the OPT. The OPT has expiration date. And this cap gap means you can continue your work as OPT even after the expiration if your H1B petition is filed and pending. So the filing of H1B is only what is needed, and it does not have to be approved to get this cap gap benefit. So it is related to the H1B start date, which is October 1st. That means you file the H1B in June, and fortunately your H1B is approved in July. However, you cannot start working as an H1B until October 1st. So going back to our cap gap, benefit, that means if your OPT expired in somewhere around August and your H1B is approved, but it begins in October 1st, that means you can continue work during the time August and September until the October 1st. So naturally, you can transit from OPT to H1B without any vacancy.
David, excellent. Thank you. And I wanted to group all the questions together. We got some more great questions. I'm going to jump around a little bit. What are the determining factors for case selection? Is it mostly the job description and what field that you receive the degree in?
Yeah, the case selection is very unfortunate that there's no standard. It's just purely lottery. That means just random. It's just a random selection. So that means we cannot we cannot have very good sense whether your case will be selected or not. So this is very unfortunate. And yeah, it's just about, it is all about random selection.
And therefore, it makes a really big difference to avoid the lottery if you can go to a cap exempt employer. That's one of the few things that can help. A couple other questions. Is the $2,500 fee to USCIS, not the fee to your firm? And that's correct. USCIS is a gift from the Trump administration. It used to be $1,500. They raised it to $2,500. So it's pretty expensive. They make it painful, but oftentimes it's a good investment. And what you could tell your potential employer is that a recruiter is taking like $20,000 to find a good qualified person. So an extra $2,500 is not so bad compared to that. But a couple other questions, David. Is there any advantage to being here on a TN visa, for example, 3 rounds of that, and have an application in for renewal for an additional 3 years? And I know we don't have the full background on this particular person who's asking, but she's had a TN visa. We know that, therefore, she's from either Canada or Mexico. And she's wondering about advantages for maybe doing a TN perhaps in parallel with an H1B. Maybe that's her question.
Yeah, I agree. TN is excellent way. You can stay and work in the US. So as long as you can continue your status in TN, yeah, you might have less benefit from the H1B because it's basically pretty much the similar. And one good thing is, yeah, if the TN has not the year limit, that's one that also could also be better than the H1B option. And also, you can change your status from TN to green card. So if you think you don't find any outstanding benefit from the H1B, you can just stay as a TN and maintain the status, and you can change your status to a green card.
Yeah, that was her. You were like you predicted it perfectly, David. She asked that question as a follow-up. Can you apply for a green card from a TN? So the TN is not technically dual intent, like an H or an L, but USCIS will allow it. Is that correct, David? They will allow a green card from a TN.
Yes.
Got it. Okay, great. And then one follow-up question there to clarify in terms of the case selection question. One of our viewers asked, what is the determining factor for case selection? And I think because she had a job description question where you had alluded to who's qualified. I think, well, you have to meet all the criteria in order to be selected. I think maybe it's approval. If you could confirm in the chat below, because David clarified, you can't. It's the lottery doesn't look at the application, but I think what she's asking later. If you could confirm, how do you get approved? What's the key? Unless I'm wrong, but yeah, please clarify that one. And a couple more questions. We want to prioritize these. A man asked, I helped to run a clinic for refugees and immigrants. Does the petition for an H1B visa require a physical exam and vaccinations? So, David, I'll let you answer that one.
H1B does not require that. The Form I-693 is the form of medical examination, is only required for green card. So if you apply for a green card, which is called adjustment of status, then you have to provide it. But for H1B, you don't have to.
Yes. Yep. That's my understanding as well. But yes, thank you, David. Okay, one other follow-up question. She writes, my understanding is that you have to be selected prior to case selection. Is it the JD or degree both? I'll be on an OPT and have a degree in communications. Since it's not technical work, I'm concerned about even getting into the pile of applicants who will undergo the lottery. Okay, so she wants to confirm that she's qualified to even be a part of the lottery. So, David, is there a reason someone might just be disqualified from even being in the lottery?
So I think that belongs to the approval of H1B after you filing the petition, after they being selected. And so you mentioned that you have to be selected prior to the case selection, but those two are the same thing. So there's one case selection, a random selection, and selected in lottery method. So yeah, to apply for that, your employer have to provide the information about the position and information about their address and some other things. And also they enter the information about the employee as well. And I guess you are mentioning about the requirement of the position. So I covered that in my previous slide, which is the specialty occupation that requires the 4-year college degree. So if your position is qualified and satisfied that requirement, and then there should be no problem in terms of the position.
Great. Thank you, David. And yeah, how many, yeah, keep going with your slides. And as people, we'll end at 30 minutes, but other questions, we'll try to prioritize those. But yes, I think, yeah, the next slide then.
Yeah. Oh, just one more comment to Ayaka. Yeah, definitely. JD definitely satisfy the specialty occupation. And also the JD qualifies for the advanced degree, meaning the second chance in the case selection. So you're in good position. Okay, let me go back to my slide. So after approval of H1B, I mentioned this before, you will be granted initial 3 years, and you can renew for another 3 years. And then this is important topic. So I'm going to share a little bit about the H1B transfer case. So you started working as an H1B, and at some point you get better job offer from another employer, and the employer is willing to sponsor you for your H1B. Then you can switch to the another employer without any worry about your maintaining your H1B status. So in terms of the process, the new employer has to file new H1B petition, which is often called H1B transfer case. This transfer petition is much simpler than your initial H1B petition because first, there is no lottery, no random selection. So you are already selected. We say you are already counted against the quota. So no lottery this time. So after you once selected from the lottery, your case is automatically changed to kept exempt. So you can now enjoy the benefit. So no worry about this uncertainty. And the second thing is, it's really important. You don't have to wait for approval of the new H1B petition filed by a new employer. You can start working for the new company after the new H1B petition is received by USCIS. And we know that whether your transfer petition is received by receiving the receipt notice from the USCIS. So then basically meaning you don't have to wait for another 3 to 4 months before starting the work. You can just start working right away after you confirm that your case is filed and received. I think this is important topic, and this page is about our ultimate goal. So because the H1B has the limit of 6 years and a little bit more plus, definitely we who want to continue to work and life in the US definitely need to consider options for green card. So as I mentioned before, the H1B is, as far as I know, the best pre-green card status because we have 6 years to prepare for employment-based green card, and we have enough time to wait for the processing because that employment-based green card processing time it varies a lot. So sometimes it is delayed than our expectation. But with H1B, we can have time to wait for it. So my slide, the first point, in Rio, it depends on the company. So some companies start the green card processing right away after your H1B is granted, but some don't. So in Rio, many companies, it depends on their decision, but are willing to sponsor the green card. So mostly employment-based green card, which is called EB2 or EB3, depending on your position. After the employees work for some time, 1 year, 2 years, or more, some time under H1B. So it is good topic to discuss about your employer when you start working for them under H1B. And but just as I mentioned that there's time limit H1B, and also that employment-based green card takes long time. So my recommendation would be start the employment-based green card procedure no later than beginning of your 5th year. Then meaning the time when you have at least 2 years of H1B. So it's a good time to begin. But other than that uncertainty and processing time of the green card, there's a reason why you start early the green card process because your green card, your H1B can be renewed in 1 year increment after the end of 6 years. That basically means your H1B can be 6 years, 7 years, 8 years, and even more while you are waiting for the green card petition. So, but for that, you need to get some approval of Department of Labor, which is called PERM, and also the form is already had to be filed. So that's why I recommend you to start this green card processing earlier while you are under the H1B. And also this applies to people from certain countries. Unfortunately, in China and India, we still have waiting time for them to have before filing the green card application, which is Form I-485. So for those people, having this 1 year renewal beyond the 6th year really helps in terms of maintaining the job and continue working in the US. So yeah, my point is, please discuss with the green card option as early as possible, and no later than your 5th year as H1B.
Great. And yes, we have a question that I want to answer. We're right at the 30-minute mark. I think we nailed it pretty well, David. Nice job with our first business immigration webinar. But Kaman in our chat, it was asking about whether he could qualify for an H1B. He'd worked as a construction contractor with the U.S. consulate, probably. I'm thinking maybe Afghanistan for 5 years, and he's wondering if he qualifies for the H1B. He needs an employer. He also typically needs a bachelor's degree, but sometimes, David, could you give a quick answer on when you could use work experience as opposed to a bachelor's degree in some circumstances to qualify?
Yeah, that is tricky issue, and basically we have a rule which is 3-year and 1-year rule. So that means basically in H1B, only in H1B, if you have 3-year work experience in related field, that can count 1 year at school. So, but that mostly applies to the case where you have 3-year college degree or 2-year college degrees. So that is adding. So, for example, if you have 2-year college degree, AA degree, then you need to fill the gap of the 2 years by adding the 6th year of work experience. And I'm not so sure about if you do not have a degree at all, whether they will be okay or not. And we need to do some research, but I'm not so optimistic about that situation, unfortunately.
And in general, the H1B is a good fit. We have to have an employer who wants to offer you a job, who does the petition application for you, and it needs to be a specialty occupation as well. So those are often two big barriers for many people who would be interested. Another question, David, can someone who has a pending asylum case apply for an H1B?
Oh, thank you so much for bringing this up. It's so important. This is very important question in every area of immigration law, not only in the H1B. So that we need to understand the concept of change of status. So for someone who are already in the US under F1 or other types of status, filing this H1B is filing the request of change of your status from your current status to H1B. And one very important rule in this change of status application is that you need to maintain valid status until the time you file this change of status petition, in here H1B petition. So for people, asylum is pending. That the pending asylum itself, unfortunately, is not a valid status. So there can be someone who have been an F1 student, and at some point they file the asylum, and the asylum is pending. But if the person at some point stop attending the school, that means the person's F1 status just terminated. And it is separating from the pending asylum. But in terms of the status, because the pending asylum does not grant any status, if the person's initial status, F1 status, expire, then the person is becoming a person without any status. So unfortunately, he or she in that condition cannot file for H1B here.
Got it. Okay, yeah, thank you, David. And then one might be our last question. Would you say a bilingual communication lead role is a specialty occupation enough to be approved, and she has an offer under that title, bilingual global communication lead. What do you think, David?
Yeah, thank you so much for bringing this question, because I'm currently working on a green card case and possibly H1B case for, in my case, Korean English interpreter and translator. And I said, I'm glad to see the question because it's so tricky. Basically, according to the data from the Department of Labor, the translator, interpreter, they are qualified for specialty occupation because generally they require more than 4-year college degree. However, the tricky thing is the major itself, because we do not have any specific requirement of a specific major to be a translator and interpreter. So connecting the dot will be kind of very difficult work, but I still see the possible. But the communicator, you mean? I once tried a case for the communication specialist at a firm. That if that is the question, if that's the question you are thinking about, that qualifies because it generally requires 4-year degree in communication major. However, so other than that, interpreter, translator, or communication specialist, other than that, I should say we need to research more about it.
And her major's public relations, she noted. Hopefully that's specialty enough. So yeah, you give it thumbs up. Yeah, okay, wonderful. Well, thank you again, everybody. We are so happy you showed up. We're going to get better at doing this. It's great to have David's brain power here sharing, and we want to make the information as accessible and helpful. So yeah, we'll do this next Friday, and we'll get more detailed. If you have specific topics you'd like us to address, yeah, email us or call us, and we'll get to it. All right. Thanks, David. Thanks, everybody. I will end the session right here.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.